This astonishing and meticulously documented encounter with the unknown occurred in post-war Italy, a country still recovering from destruction and turmoil, but already looking towards the future. The main protagonist of this story was Bruno Facchini, an ordinary worker whose life, up to a certain point, flowed predictably and calmly. He worked at a factory in his hometown of Varese, located in the picturesque Lombardy region in northern Italy, known for its lakes and alpine foothills. On that fateful night of April 23rd to 24th, 1950, Bruno Facchini, as usual, was working the night shift. The work was monotonous and tiring, and during a short break, closer to midnight, he decided to go outside to get some fresh air and stretch his stiff muscles. Shortly before this, a severe spring thunderstorm had hit Varese. Dazzling flashes of lightning tore through the sky, and peals of thunder shook the earth. By the time Bruno left the workshop, the storm had already passed, moving away, but its echoes could still be heard in the distance, and heat lightning occasionally flashed on the dark horizon, illuminating the rain-soaked ground. The air was fresh and clean, smelling of ozone and damp earth. Suddenly, Bruno noticed a strange glow in the area of the factory transformer, located at the edge of the company's territory. The first thought that came to his mind was quite practical. Perhaps, due to the storm or a power surge, a fuse in the electrical system had blown, and this glow was the result of a short circuit or arcing. Being a responsible worker, he decided to go and see if everything was all right and if his help was needed. The sight that met his eyes when he approached, not far from the main factory gates, completely took him by surprise and made him freeze on the spot. The man was literally dumbfounded with astonishment and disbelief. The bright, pulsating light, which he had mistaken for a transformer malfunction, was not coming from the transformer shed at all. Its source was a large, luminous, rounded object, standing motionless on the ground just a few tens of meters away from him. From the base of this object, like a tongue, a narrow ladder or ramp extended, resting on the ground. The upper part of this incredible UFO was illuminated by a soft, greenish glow that seemed to emanate from within. This greenish luminescence was partially obscured by the figure of a light-skinned being, which, it seemed to Bruno, was engaged in some kind of work on the surface of the ship. In the being's hands was an instrument that emitted a shower of bright sparks, very similar to a welding torch. It appeared that the alien was conducting urgent repairs on its ship right on the factory grounds. At first, Bruno, trying to find a rational explanation for what he saw, thought that it might be some new, secret type of aircraft or helicopter from the nearby military airbase, which was indeed located not far away. Perhaps they were conducting night tests or had made an emergency landing. But this assumption instantly vanished as soon as he saw other, very small beings bustling around the object. There were several of them, and they were significantly shorter than the one working. These small figures moved quickly and purposefully, as if carrying out some commands. A moment later, as if on a signal, these small aliens began to quickly ascend the extended ladder onto the ship, one after another. Having fully recovered from the initial shock and stupor, Bruno Facchini finally, in full measure, realized what was actually happening, and a chilling horror gripped him. He understood that he had witnessed something utterly incredible, beyond anything he knew or could imagine. This was not earthly technology, but real aliens from another world. The prospect of meeting them face to face, of being in their power, did not appeal to him at all. The instinct for self-preservation took over, and he, without hesitation, decided to flee, to run as far as possible from this eerie place. Turning around, he bolted back towards the factory building, hoping to take refuge there and call for help. As the man ran, saving his life, he clearly heard a strange, growing sound, resembling the low, monotonous hum of a huge beehive or the roar of a powerful electric generator. This sound seemed to penetrate to the very core of his being, causing nausea and dizziness. At that moment, the last being, which was still outside at the base of the ramp and apparently covering the retreat of the others, noticed the fleeing Bruno. It turned sharply and aimed a strange, tube-like weapon at him. In the next instant, a dazzlingly bright beam of light shot out from this weapon, hitting the man in the back with incredible speed. The impact was so powerful that Bruno Facchini was literally slammed to the ground. He fell unable to move. He felt a severe, burning pain throughout his body, as if pierced by thousands of red-hot needles. But, fortunately or unfortunately, he remained fully conscious. Lying on the wet ground, paralyzed by pain and fear, he helplessly watched as the last alien quickly boarded its object, and the ramp smoothly retracted inside. The buzzing sound he had heard earlier intensified, becoming almost unbearable, and then the UFO, enveloped in a greenish glow, smoothly and completely silently lifted off the ground, rapidly gained altitude, and a few moments later disappeared from view into the night sky, leaving behind only a faint smell of ozone and a stunned, pain-ridden witness. Somehow, overcoming the pain, Bruno Facchini managed to get to his feet and reach his colleagues, who, hearing his cries and seeing his condition, immediately called security and the factory management. The next day, having somewhat recovered from the terror and physical suffering he had endured, Bruno Facchini, despite possible ridicule and disbelief, went to the local police station and gave a detailed account of his incredible nocturnal encounter with aliens and their ship. To his surprise, the police took his statement quite seriously, perhaps because Facchini was known as a level-headed man not prone to fabrications. Moreover, on the factory grounds, in the very place where, according to Bruno, the UFO had stood, clear traces of its recent presence remained. The police who arrived at the scene found several clearly visible scorched patches of ground, where the grass and soil looked as if seared by intense heat. A noticeable circular indentation was also found in the ground, as if left by a very heavy object, possibly one of the ship's landing struts. And most interestingly, several small, strange pieces of some metallic alloy of an unusual green color were found on the ground there. Bruno Facchini, recalling the alleged welding work that one of the beings seemed to be performing on the ship's surface, suggested that these green fragments might have resulted from the UFO's repair, like drops of molten metal. All the physical evidence found at the scene, including soil samples and the mysterious green metallic fragments, was carefully collected and officially sent for examination to a specialized laboratory. As a result of the investigations, a preliminary conclusion was drawn that the submitted samples of green metal were some complex anti-friction material, i.e., an alloy designed to reduce friction. The analysis showed that it contained several different types of metal in its composition, as well as traces of some unknown lubricant. This was highly unusual and did not correspond to any known terrestrial alloys used in industry at that time. In September 1953, more than 3 years after the incident itself, independent ufologists became interested in this story and initiated their own investigations into the green substance found. The samples were handed over to a reputable scientific institute specializing in metallurgy. After a more detailed spectral analysis, the exact chemical composition of these mysterious fragments was determined. It turned out that they consisted of 74% copper, 19% tin, and also contained various other trace elements in insignificant amounts. When examined under high magnification, the substance had a yellowish-white color with greenish inclusions and, importantly, did not contain any metals or isotopes not found on Earth. That is, from the point of view of elemental composition, it was a perfectly terrestrial alloy, albeit with unusual properties. However, these findings, although somewhat disappointing to proponents of a purely extraterrestrial version, by no means completely exclude the possibility of an alien connection in Bruno Facchini's case. Firstly, there is no evidence that such a specific metal composition, possessing anti-friction properties, is not used on some other planet for specific technological needs, for example, for repairing the hulls of spacecraft. Secondly, even if the material itself was of terrestrial origin, which is unlikely, given its discovery at the UFO landing site, this does not negate the fact of the observation of the object itself and its strange occupants. It is important to note that everyone who knew Bruno Facchini personally, his work colleagues, neighbors, friends, spoke of him as a very serious, responsible, and honest man. He was respected in his community and undoubtedly deserved trust. He had no apparent motive for inventing such a complex and detailed story. The man derived absolutely no benefit from talking about the strange luminous object and its mysterious passengers, whom he had so unexpectedly encountered on that April night in 1950. On the contrary, He risked being ridiculed and misunderstood.